Let's continue our discussion about decision making with something that's a little more financially relevant. Let's talk about investing. You know, an investment could have many possibilities. Let's use three typical ones as an example. An investment has the possibility of going up, it could stay flat, or it could go down. So you want to make a yes or no decision based on whether you think it'll go up, stay the same, or go down. But it's more complicated than that. The percentage chance of it going up or down obviously influences your decision. So you have to assess a probability of an upward movement in the investment. So let's say in this case its upward movement has a 30% probability, a sideways movement is a 60% probability, and a downward movement is a 10% probability. So we assess the situation in terms of what we think will happen to the investment going forward, whatever time frame we're looking at. So with 30% chance it'll go up, 60% chance it'll go flat, and a 10% chance that it will decline in value. But this isn't the only thing we need to concern ourselves with, because the probability is just the risk of the investment going up or down. Also, we want to talk about rewards. The rewards of an upward movement of the stock are not 30%. That's the probability of it moving up. The rewards would be the percentage gain in the value of the investment. So when you think of the percentage gain in the value of this investment, perhaps there's a 30% chance of, say, a plus 5% gain, and a 60% chance of flat. So of course the rewards for a flat return is 0, no loss, no gain. And of course there's a 10% chance it'll go down. Well, if there's a 10% chance it'll go down, and we're kind of pessimistic, if it does go down, it could go down quite a ways, we could assess the rewards of it going down, the negative rewards, as being a fall of, say, 20%. So the probability, simply because it's going up, does not mean that the rewards for whatever occurrence there will be are the same. So think of it in terms of risk versus reward. The risk is a 30% upside, or a 30% chance of a 5% upside, a 60% chance of a 0 return, and a 10% chance of a negative 20% return. So the way we look at this mathematically is simply to multiply the probability by the expected return. So multiplying 0.30 times 0.05, we get a return of plus 1.5%. That's our expected return on the upside. We get 60% times 0, which is of course 0. So our return on a 60% flat scenario is 0. But our probability on the downside is 0.10 multiplied by negative 0.20, or minus 2% on the downside. So 0.10 times negative 0.20 is a 2% negative or downside expected return. So the expected return, if you simply take the net of the expected upside return and the expected downside return, is a negative 0.5%. So the expected return of this investment probability, given these predictions of rewards, is actually negative 0.5%. In other words, your choice here is to not invest. That's because the downside, even though the probability is lower, the rewards or the loss for that downside is very high. So there's a 90% chance you'll either be at 0 or make money, yet because the downside could be so strong that you find that the expected return is negative and you don't want to make this investment. So when you think of your decision making, you have to consider both risks and rewards to find out the expected return of the investment, and if it's negative, then you shouldn't invest. So you can simply multiply the probability by the rewards or the potential upside or the potential return, and multiply it across different probabilities to find out whether the net of those outcomes is positive or negative. If it's a positive result for you, then it sounds like a reasonable investment, or at least your assessment of it at this point is reasonable. And of course, if it's negative, then your assessment of it is negative and you should avoid it. So the most important thing here is the concept of risk versus rewards. The risk in this case has a negative downside return of 2%. The upside is a possible or a predicted 1.5% on the upside. So the net is a loss, which means we don't want to bet on this investment.